Hi there, everybody. Welcome to our year-round indoor salad gardening live stream. It's really exciting to have everybody here. My name is Carrie. I'm the Assistant Outreach and Education Manager here at City Market. I'm the one who's been sending you all of those emails. I'll be sending you some more after class is done as well, so don't worry, you'll still be hearing from me. If you have any questions at any point during the live stream, you can type them into the question and answer box, and I'll be able to see those and feed them along to Mr. Burke as they are relevant. So again, you can always type questions into that question and answer box. One thing I always like to start out these classes with is learning where everyone's watching from. I know we've been able to reach a much wider audience now that we've taken a lot of our classes virtual. So if you want to share, feel free to type where you're watching from in that question and answer box, and I'd love to see kind of where we're hitting across the country and across possibly other countries as well. So again, at any point, if you have any questions, type them in that question and answer box. If you're joining us just a few minutes late, you can always hit live down along the bottom of the screen near where the play and pause button would be. That'll catch you up to where we are live rather than having you watch from the beginning. So without further ado, I'll let Mr. Burke take over. But again, I'll be there to answer any of your questions. So feel free to type those in. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, I'm Peter Burke, and we're going to be going over the basics of my book, Year-Round Indoor Salad Gardening, Seed to Salad in 7 days, and it's a very easy way to have fresh greens all winter long or all summer long, depending on what you need. And let's see, go ahead. So this is my book. This is what it looks like. You can find it online or bookstores or wherever. And it's how to grow nutrient-dense soil sprouts, and in less than 10 days. And they call it a low tech, and that's really one of the things I absolutely love about it. Is it's so simple, and it works right into an apartment or a kitchen or a harvest kitchen very easily. Okay. The book was on the 2 most requested library journal by the library journal when it first came out, and that's kind of fun. It's nice to know. So if you don't want to buy the book, just go to the library and ask them. They can get it there, and it's all very clear. And there's some sheets right in the center that are they put everything down on one page, so you can do it. Okay. So this is where I started, right here. It was seeing this inevitability in my mind's eye as I was planting my garden in the fall. The geese were flying overhead, and I was just thinking, well, we've had a good garden season. I'll be really sad to see it go, but we did pretty well. We had a good season. And it was at that point that I realized, well, the one thing that I really missed was fresh greens during the winter. And it was the one thing, you can go ahead. Yeah, the one thing that we could not store. And we freeze some stuff. We have a cold cellar for, lots of root vegetables and potatoes and onions and stuff. We can stuff. We freeze stuff, we dry stuff. We use all the 5 different ways to store foods, including fermentation. And we make some really good kimchi and great sauerkraut. But the one thing you can't have from the garden and can't store or dry is the fresh greens. So that got me thinking. This was 2005. I wanted to figure out how to have fresh greens all winter long. And there's a lot of different approaches. At that time, microgreens was not as well known for sure. But the different choices you have is, of course, sprouts in a jar. And my boys just thought, no, that's not salad. You got to do better than this. I had 3 boys, and they were pretty finicky. So I used them as my measure. If the boys liked it, I knew it was okay. And I started to figure, well, I could grow lettuces, but growing for what I figure about 2 heads of lettuce a day for our family, that would take a lot of lights and a lot of shelf and a lot of room in your house. So I thought, well, I guess I better think of something else. And then I remembered something I had done years ago was growing sunflower seeds in big trays. And so I tried some sunflowers. I tried in a big tray, and I found out, well, change. You know, you can grow these big trays, but with the big trays, it's sort of feast and famine. You have a little bit too much, and you got to store it in the fridge, and then you got to find room in the fridge, and then if you don't eat them up right away, they don't come out good. So I started to just grow things in little tins, you know, like the bread loaf tins, those little aluminum foil tins. I tried that. Well, it worked great, you know, and then I realized that, okay, I have my sunflowers. If I do a tray of sunflower every day, I'd have a tray of sunflowers every day. So I planted the sunflower, and then I expanded it to sunflower and radishes, and then expanded it to sunflower radishes and peas, and then sunflower radishes and buckwheat. And those became the basis of my salad. You can see in this picture, it's a very simple shelf on a simple window, and every day you walk up to that, you plant a little more, you put it on the shelf, it grows. There's your garden right there, right in front of you, right in the window, you know. Okay, so this is my daily harvest. From what I did was 5 trays a day. I did the sunflower, the peas, the radishes, buckwheat, and then later on, well, I should say the 4 trays. That's what you're seeing here, the 4 trays: the sunflower, the radishes, the buckwheat, and the peas. And that started out as my basic indoor garden right there. So by planting a little bit every day and harvesting some every day, it takes up a lot less space in your house. You know, you don't have to have these big trays. You don't have to have lights. You don't have to take up a lot of room in your house. And when I started doing this, I basically was just a cupboard over my refrigerator and windowsills around the house. Just real simple. Go ahead. So I added this simple shelf on the window. Now, the important thing is that not only no lights, there's no greenhouse, and this window right here is a north-facing window. You don't need to have the bright lights. All you need is ambient light. If there's light comes in the window, it's enough. So, you know, it's very low tech. There's a very small window, and just look at all the greens that you can grow in such a small space. So there's no need for a south-facing window. So it got to the place where I realized, wow, my greenhouse is a house full of greens. And that was one of the things I was contemplating. I had read Elliot Coleman's book on winter gardening and all the rest. And greenhouses are a little bit expensive to start with. And they really require a fair amount of management. And also, if you read Elliot's book, is that he shuts them down for January and February anyway. So that didn't really fit in, but the greenhouse with a house full of greens, that fit in perfectly. I was very tickled with that. Okay. So I had an objection by a very well-known fellow who makes manure compost over in Montpelier, Vermont. And he said, well, this is just so seed intensive. And I really understood, you know, if you plant, 200 sunflower plants, right, you end up with lots and lots of sunflower seeds from your plants, or corn. You plant, corn, you plant rice, all the rest, you get a lot in return. So I was thinking, well, you know, maybe this is wasteful. And as I was looking at these very jars right there, I thought, well, wait a minute. You cook up a bowl of rice, you make bread out of the wheat, you make a corn tortilla out of the corn, you know, and nobody ever says that a bowl of rice is seed intensive. Nobody says wheat is seed intensive. So I realized that this was just another way to prepare seeds, in a sense, cooked seeds by growing them. So you're going to grow them out. And from then on, I was very happy with the seed intensive garden that I had created. Go ahead. So the tools are very simple. This is my soil box, and I have a seed box. I'll show it to you in a minute. So the soil box is, this is germination mix, and it's peat moss, vermiculite, and perlite. That's all. Sometimes it's called a sterile mix because there's no dirt in there, and you don't get any other, you're less likely to have funguses and problems like that when you use compost from your bin or even dirt, So that's the basic germination mix, and then I use KELP, either liquid or the KELP meal, and then a manure compost, and that's it. That's my soil box. That's all you need in there. Oh, you see, there's a tablespoon in there and a strainer, and that's for when you're working with your seeds or when you're measuring out the compost or the KELP. Okay, the soil box, the seed box, this is so simple. I usually keep these under the kitchen table. And so, because I'm doing it every day, and it keeps it nice and neat and all the rest. It keeps it out of the way. And, if we're having people over, these go upstairs into my office and makes it pretty simple. But so what I have for the seed box is, you'll see I've got some little cups. And so part of this, the way this starts is I'm going to soak the seeds. So I have a tablespoon of radish, a tablespoon of sunflower, a tablespoon of peas, and a tablespoon of buckwheat. And you see, I just measure them out. I put them in the soil cups, and then I soak them. I soak them for at least 6 to 24 hours. And that's one of the little chores that I do every day. Is I'm going to soak the seeds, and then the ones that I soaked the day before, I'm going to plant. So you get into kind of a rhythm. You can modify this a little bit if you want to do it every other day. You can plant, 10 trays or some bigger trays, every other day. So it's really easy to adjust what you do. Okay, we can go to the next one. So this is where it starts. Soak the seeds, okay? And this is, let them soak for 6 to 12 hours. And I'll go ahead and you got to make sure you got plenty of water, plenty of room for the water. And because they'll soak up and they'll absorb all the water that's in there. And what we're doing by soaking the seeds, we're forcing our plants. This gives the seeds kind of a head start. If you were just to take the dry seeds and plant them in the soil, it would take 3 or 4 days or 5 days for it to even soak up enough water to sprout. These will sprout much quicker. We're giving ourselves a head start. Okay, next. So once you have your seeds soaking, you go ahead and moisten that soil. And you'll see that that's a 1 gallon bag. I put a 1 gallon of the dry germination mix in there. And then I add a quart of water, 4 cups of water. And that works really well for the first stage of the planting. When you just first start, you plant the seeds, and then you let them. You actually put them in a cupboard for 4 days. You put them in a dark place, warm, dark place for 4 days. Go ahead. So then I fold up the paper covers. After I plant the seeds in a tray, I put a wet paper newsprint, or you can use even terry cloth or any kind of thing. But I use the newsprint because it's fairly reliable and I know what to expect. And you fold up enough newsprint, it's either 2 or 3 sheets from a newspaper, so that when you fold it over, it's about 12, at least about 12 sheets of paper all folded over. It gives you a nice, and it goes into you'll see the water. And that's fine. Yeah, you see the water, and that just soaks in there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can leave it soaking for a half hour if you want, but you want them nice and soggy. So once you have your seeds ready and your paper covers ready, then you're ready to start the actual planting process. And it's just basically Imperial, more or less. I've experimented with this enough to know a tablespoon of compost, manure compost, or any kind of compost really, and a half teaspoon of the sea kelp meal, or just the liquid sea kelp. Makes it so that when the seeds use up all the nutrient inside the seed, it still has a little bit of nutrition left. And I've just found that things like the fast growing radishes, they don't turn yellow, they stay nice and green when you have a little bit, and everything grows better. So this is just from experimentation. So right in the bottom, and some people say, well, why don't you put it in with the soil? Well, the next picture will show you, because when you look at the soil cake after you've harvested it and turned it over, you'll see that the roots just go down around and around on the bottom, and that's where the nutrition is, and that's where they stay. They don't actually grow back up into the soil. Same thing. This is peas. The next picture is peas. You see it makes this mat almost. It's like a solid mat, and the roots just go down, and they just go round and round and round and grow in the sea kelp, in the manure compost. So once you've put your nutrients down there at the bottom, then you can fill it with the moistened soil mix, the germination mix. And I put it in there. It's about this is a 3 inches by 6 inches, and it's a half loaf, 1 pound loaf pan. Now that's my my basic where I start, and this is definitely the think small. But you saw the harvest that I got from that, doing 4 of these little trays. It's just phenomenal how much can grow. So we fill that till it's about a 1/4 inch down, and you see the soaked seeds are right there next to it, ready to go. All right. So I just level it off a little bit, and you want to leave about a 1/4 inch. You can leave a little bit less, but when you water your seeds, if you were to fill that right up to the very tippy top, then the water would tend to spill out over. So this is sort of making its own little cut, for that water to go in. All right. Then you rinse the seeds, and you just pop them in. You just lay them out. Now I laugh, and when I go back to when I originally started this, I actually planted the seeds in little rows, and I thought that that might be important. Yeah, it is, what can I say? And then I finally realized, why am I doing this? I don't really need them to be in rows. So anyway, this is what you want. You want them touching, not overlapping, but you want that tray completely, as full as you can get. So I'll dump in those trays after they're rinsed off, put them in, and then just spread them out with my fingers or a spoon. Okay. So this is the paper cover, and this is why we folded up those newsprint and why we soaked them, is because this actually replaces moist soil over the top of the seeds. And by replacing that moist soil, we do a couple of things. We keep the seeds in the dark. We keep them really nice and moist, so they have all of the sprout, to encourage the sprouting. And it also makes it dark in there, so we want it to be nice and dark. And once you put that cover on, now you can see that I've actually pushed it down onto, so where the sides are actually coming up a little bit. So you want it to be nice contact with the seeds. It's not to set on top of the tray, but it's set down in on the seeds. Okay. And then once that's on there, they go into 4 days in the dark. And this is a cupboard over my refrigerator. It's a nice warm place. 4 days in the dark. And this is like one of the real tricks of this technique is that you're letting it sprout in the dark and you're forcing it to reach out and up. And so those 4 days in the dark is part of getting it to be very productive, because you'll have nice long stems, not just leaves. And a lot of times when you're doing microgreens, you know, you're putting it in the light right away. Well, we want to force these. We want them to reach up a little bit before we put them out in the light. So you dark, warm place for 4 days. And then on the 5th day, at the end of the 4th day, you know, they go into the light. This is what I call the push-up day, because you see the little sprouts have pushed up the paper cover, and it doesn't matter how heavy it is or how wet it is, it'll push it up. And then you'll see that the trays go right out into a windowsill. And as they're coming out of the dark place, all the leaves are green, yellow. They haven't greened up yet, and that's a good way to start. That's what you want. You want them to be reaching up and yellow in the beginning. And then from that point, you water once a day. You'll notice that these trays do not have holes in them for the water to go down through. These trays are solid at the bottom, so that none of the water leaks out. What this does, allows you to use regular, you know, ceramic bowls or whatever else, without worrying about the water coming down and out and making a mess in the house. And so the trade-off is that you water once a day, which I love to do. I mean, it's a lot like gardening. You know, I get to tend to my garden, I get to play in the dirt, and I get to water them and watch them grow. And then as I'm doing that, I'll get to decide what's for dinner. Speaking of what's for dinner, these are radishes my wife is harvesting. And this particular salmon, the ceramic pot that we have actually fits 2 of those trays in there. And actually what's in there is 2 trays. And the reason we do that is so that we can set it out, you know, even on the kitchen table, and it looks pretty, it looks nice, you know, and it's sort of like a secret garden, you know. It makes it so that it's can be part of your house plants and not look like you're you know, making a mess. Anyway, that's the harvest, and you cut them about a 1/4 inch from above the dirt. As you can see, she's harvesting and putting them in a bowl, and then we'll rinse them off from there. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had someone ask the question, does it matter if you just use plain tap water?
That's fine. Tap water's fine.
Great.
Yeah, that's what we use all the time, and I've used it many times. It's no problem.
Perfect.
Yep. You know, there's so we clean the greens. You know, the peas and the sunflower, they just need a rinse. The buckwheat, you know, same thing, you need a rinse, but you got to watch the hulls. And then the radishes, I'll put them in the water like this. And you can see, just by using a small amount at a time, you just push them down. Because this is dry, this isn't like sprouts in a jar. The hulls are light and they float up top and they come right off. And that makes the cleaning them a whole lot easier. I really find that a real bonus. Is easy cleanup. And then you chop them. Now you'll see that I've chopped the bottom. These are pea shoots. If you're not sure what they are, this is a wonderful batch of pea shoots. Boy, they look beautiful. And so towards the bottom of the stem, I chop those about 1/4 inch, because sometimes if you let them grow a little bit too long, they're a little bit tough or grassy. But when you chop them into those 1/4 inch, they're just really delicious and sweet flavored. And then as you go further up, you can cut them a little bit longer. By the time I get to the top, I cut them about 1 inch. But that first, you know, inch or 2 in the bottom, you cut it fine, and that makes a nice texture in your salad. Look at this, huh? Isn't that a wonderful sight? You'd like to see that in January going into your salad bowl. That's on the right-hand side, that's the sunflower, and on the left, that's pea shoots. And it's, you know, the flavor is so delicious. I mean, the pea shoots are sweet. They taste like peas, but they make they're a nice texture and a nice tossed salad. And the sunflower, you know, you cut them up, and the stems are very tender right from the very bottom on up. And the green leaves have this nice nutty flavor. And the thing that the reason this worked out for me is that my boys decided that this was okay for a tossed salad. This was not sprouts. They were happy with that. And so I felt like I had succeeded. And this is my all-star salad. This is peas, sunflower, radishes. You'll see the radishes in here had that sort of purplish look. Those are home vid radishes. And I love using different kinds of radishes for the salads. You get to see that beautiful color on the windowsill, and kind of gives you a lift in the middle of winter, helps get over the cabin fever. And then I always add a grated carrot from you know, from the root cellar, and that adds a little bit more color. And you have this wonderful salad that in the middle of the winter. And this just filled the bill. I was very, very happy when I got to this point.
A couple more questions that came in for you. Someone asked if you could please repeat the size of the metal pans that you use and where you can find them.
Oh yeah, sure.
And then the other question is that Valerie mentioned she has trouble getting the seed heads off at the top, even with the images that you were showing. It's very labor intensive at the end. Any other tips besides the water dumping?
Oh yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll get into that. And what was the first question?
The size of,
okay. So there's, I usually use, well, for my classes, I use the aluminum foil bread pans. And one's a half loaf. It's called a 1 pound bread pan. And that's 3 inches by 6 inches. It's fairly small. And that takes 1 tablespoon of the big seeds. And then the larger one that I use is a 4 by 8 bread pan. That's sort of a standard size bread pan. And you need 2 tablespoons of the seeds, those big seeds for those. And in my book, if you look up in the reference, that I have sort of a guide there for different size bowls that if you want to use ceramic bowls. My wife and I kind of, we like using the ceramic bowls because you can put them in the dishwasher, and you know you're less recycling of the aluminum, which we like. The aluminum trays last pretty well, at least 10 good plantings anyway, sometimes even more. And I actually, when I get to the point where they're starting to crack or have leaks in them, I'll tape them up with a little bit of duct tape. And but you know, we've ended up going mostly to the ceramic bowls, and it's fun. The Christmas tree shop had these little half loaf, ceramic half loaf trays, and those are beautiful. They worked really, really well. I like those a lot. So, and then I went to the dollar store and I got some cereal bowls. They're about 6 inches. And when we do the demo later on, I'll show you some of these things. So the 3 by 6, that's the small tray, and the 4 by 8, that's what I call a large tray. And by doing that, it takes up a lot. You plant a little bit every day, it takes up a lot less room in your house, and makes it easier to just, you know, grow a little bit. And the cool thing is that if you have somebody coming over or you're planning on a party, you know, a week ahead of time, you just add a couple more trays, and it makes it really easy to grow a little bit more. I always put in extra trays when one of my sons comes home because he loves the sunflower greens. He'll cut a whole tray and put it in his sandwich and, you know, put it down, and he likes those a lot. So we always make a little extra when he's going to be around. Okay.
Yep, I see we have a few more questions coming in. I'm going to let Mr. Burke get through the last few slides of his presentation, and then I'll ask all of those at the end if that's okay for people. So we'll just go through a few more slides, and then I'll ask all those great questions that are coming in.
Okay, great. I look forward to it. Whoops. Did you forget to water? Well, this happens every once in a while when you're watering along, and particularly with radishes, because they are so fast growing, it's hard to keep up with them sometimes. But usually one good watering a day is enough for everything. But I've found that occasionally I'll get going and get distracted and I'll miss a tray. So don't fret. You can perform sprout CPR. So you just take those wilted greens in the tray, and you just you know, soak them with water, and then I put them in a plastic bag and put them in the fridge, and the next day they'll be good. They'll be good, unless, you know, they get to the point. And I like to make the point that you can't mess this up. So this tray, my son Jake helps me with this. And he had a tray of trays, and one of them slipped off the tray and went, you know, landed on right by the wood stove. And so, being a good kid, he swept everything up into a dustpan. Being a kid, he just left the dustpan behind the wood stove. And 3 or 4 days later, I come across this dustpan with the pea shoots growing like crazy. And so I say, you can't mess this up. I mean, you can throw the tray on the ground, sweep them into a dustpan, and they will still grow. So this is for brown thumbs, people, you know, who worry about, you know, about being able to do it. And no, you can't mess it up. It's really easy to do. So this is a series of planting, you know. So the first day you're planting the seeds. Now, actually, I'm not really done here. There'll need to be more seeds and they'll be touching each other. But these are the soaked seeds on top of the soil. And now you understand these pictures are without the wet newspaper cover, but I just wanted you to see how the seeds were progressing. And in some cases, if you look closely, you can actually see a tail starting to form on these seeds. Go ahead. And after the first 24 hours, the first day, you will definitely see the tail starting to form. I mean, they're very quick growing. And again, remember, we're forcing these. We've soaked the seeds. We've put them in a nice, dark, warm place. So they're responding to that. So good. And the third day or second day afterwards, the next 24 hours, that fuzz that you see is not mold. Those are root hairs. So don't worry. If you see that fuzz, it's root hairs. And that's probably the #1 email I get. Oh my gosh, I got mold on them. No, it's probably root hairs. And particularly with the vigorous radishes, which these are, you'll see quite a bit of the white underneath there. So it's the third day, and they're already up, you know, quite a bit. They're really booking. They're really growing fast. And then this is the push-up day. By the end of the 4th day, the beginning of the 5th day, they should be up a good inch. So that, and then this is the end of the 5th day. Being in the light, they turn green that quickly. They're very quick to grow. And then the 6th day is putting on a little bit more height to see those nice long stems. That's what makes it so productive, not just the cotyledon, but we have this nice long stem. And then this is your harvest day. You cut them down, and one of the things that I think is so incredible about this is the freshness. When you get to this day 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, by the time it gets there, you're going to cut these and you're going to eat them. This is akin to the freshest. This would be the freshest food that you eat in your life. You know, this is like when, you know, a deer goes out and is eating grass up on our hillside. This is that fresh. This is, you know, and the thing with and God bless them, our markets. We have wonderful greens. Our organic gardeners at the market, farmers market, we get these wonderful greens and all the rest. But even at their best, they're usually about 3 days old. And a lot of greens actually start to lose their nutrient value right, by 3 days. So this would be the freshest food you eat, and I think that's very important. So when I first did this, I used, they were all the large seeds, the peas, the sunflower, the radishes, and the buckwheat. At one point, reading a couple of articles about how incredible broccoli sprouts were. They have a antioxidant called sulforaphane, and you can type that into Google and you'll find out incredible things about this antioxidant. And Johns Hopkins University did a thorough, extensive research on the value of sulforaphane in the broccoli sprouts. Now, the magic with the sulforaphane is it actually kills cancer cells. So that's really what was the driving factor in that. So I thought, well, I should see if I can grow broccoli. And it turned out that using the same technique, the broccoli would give me about an ounce. Well, the sulforaphane in a regular broccoli or in any of the cole family, compared to the sprouted, it's about 50 to 1. So the sprouts have almost 50 times the amount of that sulforaphane in them, and that's what makes them so powerful. And so that 1 ounce is equal to about 4 pounds of broccoli, in the value of the antioxidants. And I was reading the book called Superfoods, and they were saying broccoli is one of the superfoods for the sulforaphane. And there was this little sidebar, and they said the superfood. And so the broccoli sprouts are right there. And even though they're not big producers like the other ones, where you get 3 ounces or so, you'll get about an ounce of the greens. They're very nutritious, so they're worth growing. But you only need a teaspoon of the heaping teaspoon of the broccoli seeds for the regular small tray, the 3-inch by 6-inch tray. So, and then you've got the tablespoon of the larger seeds. That's what you need for the 3 by 6, and then that's just double for the larger tray, the 4 by 8. Okay. So grow your own seeds? Yeah, you can. These are actually radish seeds, and you could pretty easily grow enough radishes to grow your own seeds. And of course, it's always interesting to see if you can close the cycle and have sort of a sustainable garden that way. Now this is I built this tray because I was going to a home show, and I wanted to show the people there how much space it takes to grow a salad every day using my method. And so this is a 20-inch shelf. It's 6 feet tall, and there's the cupboard underneath, and that's where I put that's where I do my 4 days in the dark. And then, the four shelves above that, that's where I put the trays. So they're in the cupboard for 4 days, and then they're out on the shelves for 3 or 4 days. So with this here, with just that much space, you can grow about 14 to 16 ounces a day. It's almost a pound of greens. And that's how simple this is. It takes very little space in your garden. Okay, I think that's it. I think oh yeah, this is a homemade shelf. This just I just put on my, right over the top of my regular. That way you could put a little bit more on there. And you can use the windowsill if that's all you got. That works out fine too. And and the indoor salad farm, if you wanted to, you could grow a lot and you could sell greens, or, I figured you could probably on a 6-foot shelf that I had in my mud room. You could probably at $1 an ounce. You could probably make about $35,000 a year just growing the greens. So that's a good sideline if you wanted to do it. I was kind of curious as to what it would take. This is down by the wood stove, so it's nice and warm. Anyway, let's open up the questions.
Yeah, we got a ton of great questions coming in while you did that. Let me switch over real quick just to your view so we can just see you nice and big as you answer these. All right, so starting from the beginning, we have, do you recycle the seed roots into your compost heap after you harvest?
For sure, absolutely. Carrie saved one of the seed cakes for me, and if you're familiar with a compost pile, you need the greens and you need the browns. Well, this is just dried out, and it crumbles up beautifully in your compost bin, and it provides the browns to your greens. So you take your bucket or two. We usually take 2 buckets out, 2 gallons of stuff, and then we'll have a few of these and crumble them up with it, and that sort of balances them out. So you have your browns and greens. So yeah, absolutely.
Great. Next came in, for smaller harvests, can you plant all the different kinds of seeds in one container together?
Absolutely, you can, and that's the mix is something that my daughter Claudia, she's an Ayurvedic doctor, and they go up to Prince Edward Island every summer, not this summer, but and she said, well, can't I just put all these in one tray, So when you look at the cover of the book, those are actually from her garden up in Prince Edward Island, where she mixed them all together. And so she shows the 7 days, right there. And they grow beautiful. It's a great way to do it. And she chose to do the big trays because it was just her and her husband, and she would grow one every day, and they would have that. It would be enough for her salad every day. So yeah, absolutely. And what's fun is different mixes. If you grab the book from the library or buy the book, in the back section there, I go through some different mixes that I like, and people sort of like arugula, but arugula sprouts are so strong they can easily give you a stomachache. So you have to be careful with things like that. And the mustard, same thing. But you put a little bit of arugula, a little bit of mustard in you, and you get a little bit of spice, and it's really nice, And the arugula has almost a sweet flavor to it, but it does still have the heat.
Yeah. Someone else asked if you could repeat the title of your book. They came in late, so that's a good segue.
Yeah. Well, it's called Year-Round Indoor Salad Gardening, and it's by Peter Burke. That's me. And you can get it at the bookstores. You can find one at the libraries, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and in fact, my publisher, Chelsea Green, over in White River Junction, they actually have it on sale today. I happened to notice it was like $19 for
Yeah, they're having a big sale on a lot of their books.
They're having a big sale on that. So check their website as well. Besides Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Great.
And, if you're like me, you can try to go to your local bookstore because they're great.
Someone wants to know if you can reuse the soil rather than dumping it in the compost.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you asked, because that's, I'll show you. So this is that tray that Carrie saved for me. That's this dry tray. And you actually can you crumple it up. I don't know, can you see that?
Yep, I have it in a big, nice view for you.
Okay, you can crumple this up, and then you just kind of sift out the grassy parts, you see, and just sift the grassy parts out. It's pretty easy. You could use a fairly large grain sifter, or even like a 1/4-inch hardware cloth is what I've used. I have a couple of those trays that I use for my dryer. And just, run it over with your hand. Some of the stuff might break up in it, but it's not going to hurt it. And you'll get quite a few reuses out of it. So yeah, definitely that's an option.
Someone asked, I've heard of salmonella in sprouts. Is there any danger of salmonella with this method?
these are soil sprouts. And the distinction here is that the sprouts that have problems with salmonella are commercially grown. And the way they're grown is they have a tray. They take sowed seeds in the tray, and then they keep them in a very, very moist climate where they actually spray them every day or every other day so that they're constantly in moisture. With these, and it's on the seed hull where the salmonella comes, and they do a lot of testing and all the rest, and they're usually with the alfalfa. And now with the sunflower, the buckwheat, those seed hulls do grow up, but they are dry because when we water, and I probably didn't make that point, but when you water, you don't spritz them, you don't mist them, you water the soil. So you want a watering can that's got sprouts, so you're gonna, water the soil. So because they're dry, you're not gonna have a problem with salmonella. And probably as much as they advertise or talk about the problems with sprouts, there's never been a case of salmonella in a homegrown sprout. That just doesn't happen. And the problem is entirely with the commercially grown. So you don't need to worry about them. And the peas, of course, there's no hulls on them anyway. They're down below. And even the pea seed down below is not moist or molded or anything like that. So there's never been a problem.
Awesome. Someone wants to know, would spinach, arugula, and lettuce seeds produce the same results? And you mentioned the arugula already, but
no, they don't. The arugula, yes, but you're just going to get a little sprout like a broccoli sprout. You're not going to get a leaf the way that. If you want the leaf, then you've got to have lights, and you're going to be growing microgreens, and that's a little bit different. And the same thing with spinach. Spinach does not work well with this, and heaven knows I've tried because I really would love to have baby spinach in the winter. But a couple of things is that it takes too long. It takes almost 28 days to get to the baby stage. And so then you need lights.
Great. A couple people have asked about what temperature you're looking for when the tray is in the light, like if a windowsill would be too cold.
Oh, okay, great question, thank you. The temperature in the incubation stage when we're forcing them, you really want 65 to 75 degrees. You want them warm, okay? And if your sprouts the soil sprouts when they're incubating, if they don't grow up that inch within 4 days, you want to look to your temperature. You want to make them maybe a little bit warmer. Once they come out, it can be as cool as 55 degrees. I put them in my mud room, and they're oftentimes it's only 55 degrees. So yeah, you're fine. You're fine with the 55 degrees, but it is real important to be nice and warm when they're in the first 4 days. And if you don't have a spot, like over the fridge, if that doesn't work for you, just look around your house and you'll find a spot where it's a little bit warmer. Down by our wood stove is nice and warm. I had one lady who said, I'm going to put them in a drawer right next to my dishwasher because it's always warm in there. And I thought that was such a great idea. I went home and I put sprouts in a drawer that was over by one of the heaters, and it was a plastic, thing for. The next week I was talking about it and I mentioned that and I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot all about those sprouts in the drawer. And so when I went home that night, I was like, here's these sprouts that have been growing for a week and they were up like this, and I'm pulling them out and trying to get them out of there. So this comes under the category, you can't mess it up. I watered them good, I put them in and had a harvest, no problem.
Great. Someone else had to ask about the other issue is that by the end, the soil is pushing up around the sprouts, making them hard to harvest cleanly. Should she use a different pan or different soil? And then again, that same question about getting the hulls off, but you had showed that picture of doing it with the water. So she says she's having trouble with the dirt near the bottom pushing up. And any recommendations?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question. So you have the tray, and the dirt's pushing up.
I guess like getting too close to where you're cutting it off with the scissors, but I guess you could just
Well, I'll cut them up about a quarter inch, good quarter, or even a half inch is fine. You know, you're not going to lose a whole lot by going up above there. You don't want to cut it down to ground, you know, right close to the seed, because you will get dirt in that way. So yeah, come up a little bit higher and try that. And if you make sure the seeds are on top of the soil, not underneath. Let me see, I can't think of, did that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, you can always type in the question box if you have further clarification.
Yeah, if that doesn't answer your question, give it another try, because I might be missing something.
Someone wants to know where you get your seeds. Where do you source them?
Well, the seeds are, as a matter of fact, you could get the seeds right here at the city market, and they do have these high milling seeds. You can get them online, a place called Handy Pantry, which now is called True Leaf. They have excellent seeds. I've always had good luck with them. You know, there's you know, there's a lot of different sources like that. I used to sell them, but I don't anymore. It just got to be too much. I have a day job, so you know, 160-hour job, 60-hour-a-week job is enough.
Yeah. Once you cut back the sprouts, do they keep producing?
Not really. The only exception to that is the peas. They will put up another whole crop, but it will be about half the size. And sometimes, like peas, if you cut them, if you notice your germination isn't all that great, you may get a second crop from those peas that didn't grow the first time quick enough. And but usually that's not as good a crop. It's definitely not as good a crop as your first one. So you have to decide if it's worth the space and the time and the watering, the care for that second crop.
Great. Any recommendations for the type of sunflower seed?
Oil, black oil, definitely. The other ones, the striped ones, the giant striped ones, they tend to cling to the, and so you have to pull off almost every one. The black oil, they open up and they fall off. And so the black oil seems to be the best.
Great. And the last one for now, we'll move into the demo portion, but feel free to put more in during the demo. Someone asked, will mung beans work?
Yeah, mung beans do work. Most of your beans don't. They tend to mold very quickly. Mung beans, azuki beans, French lentils, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, those all work anyway. Squash seeds do not work. They're terrible bitter. And yeah, so those are the ones.
Great. A couple people are asking, when you mentioned the black oil, is that the same as birdseed?
Yeah.
The black oil per seed. Yep.
Yeah. And birdseed, you can buy birdseed. The first time I was trying it, I was buying birdseed, and I would always start by taking the seeds out, put them on, and divide the rocks and the sticks and all the things that are in there. So you realize that you're buying a lot of stems. So if you can get seeds for sprouts, Himonian, Johnny's, all those, they have specifically seeds for sprouts, or seeds for shoots. And that's what you want to look for in a catalog, is seeds for shoots. That's sort of what they call them now.
Great.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and move into the demo portion. I'm going to come up and tilt the camera down just a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the workspace.
Sure.
But like I mentioned, feel free to keep putting those questions into the chat, and I will pass them along as they become relevant. Someone wants to know the best variety of pea seeds that you recommend.
Oh, absolutely any kind of pea. I usually use snow peas because But Johnny sells I don't know what it's called, some sort of a gray dwarf, and that works fine too. But any kind of pea seeds. The nice thing is when you have peas left over from your garden, you can use them in your winter, your indoor salad garden. So these are the trays that I started out to use. Can you see those? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, this is the 4x8. That's a full 2-pound, bread loaf, and then this is the 1-pound half loaf. And you can get these. Actually, you can get them in some dollar stores. Almost all of your grocery stores have them. Certainly, Costco's and all of those places have them. I buy them by a huge box from, but that's all because I'm doing classes and stuff like that. But this is where I started, and this is a good way to sort of learn is before you start using your salad bowls and get in trouble with somebody, you can use these. So the first thing, hang on a second, I gotta get my handy dandy. And I've got my 2 containers here. This is the compost. And you can use, I don't recommend you using compost from your garden because you got a little bit of, you got a lot of beasties in there that will flourish in that warm weather and the warm indoors. So I usually use bag compost that I get. You guys are probably familiar with the compost, Carl Hammer's compost, Vermont. But any kind of compost is fine. I prefer the manure compost. And that was a tablespoon in the small one, remember from the picture. And it's 2 tablespoons in the big one. And it's a half teaspoon of the KELP in the small one. And it's a teaspoon of the KELP in the big one. And that goes on the bottom. As you saw, that's because that's where the roots go. So, and then, okay, so this is just a 1-gallon juice container. And this is just a 1-gallon plastic bag. If you remember the picture of the soil box, I had the 1-gallon container in there, and I had a couple of bags of this, at least 1 bag. So you can, it takes about, can you see okay?
Yeah, I'm just getting a better angle.
Do I need to be back a little more?
Nope, you're perfect now. It's all good. Someone just commented, this has been so fun. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in.
I enjoy it myself. I never get tired of it. So it takes about 1.25 cups for the small one. I'll just keep it in a cup. And about 2 cups for this. Remember, you want to leave about 1/4 inch or so. Since the large one is a little bit deeper, you can actually leave a little bit more than the 1/4 inch. So this is our germination mix. And it's just peat moss to make it grow light. And I just like to level it off and just leave a little bit of room for the water when you're watering with your, you can just put the spout down there and water it. And you get a sense after a while, it's a couple to 4 tablespoons of water a day. But you get a sense of this color, if it gets to be a light brown like peat moss, you need water. And the other thing is you get sort of a heft test. You feel the weight. If it feels way too light, you need water. So those are things that you'll acquire that knowledge from experience.
Someone wanted to know if they could use a glass loaf pan or if the container needs to be opaque. And I don't think it needs to be, right? We did the plastic cup.
We have, in fact, Carrie, you had we use this, and I brought this up because it's fun to do little things like this where kids can see the roots going down and going around. And it's a very dramatic way, but yeah, you can use glass ones. Yeah, go ahead. What a great idea.
Yeah. And then someone else asked, is this regular CKELP or do you need to get it from a gardening store? And I believe it's a garden supplement.
Any kind of CKELP is fine. This is usually called CKELP meal, and it comes in a 4-pound bag in a garden store. But if you, I don't know, do you sell CKELP?
I don't believe we sell it here other than like we sell edible seaweeds like dulse and stuff like that, but I think it's a different variety, more for food than nutrients.
So probably, like you're saying, probably the garden store would be the place to get the CKELP. You can also use the liquid stuff, and that's easier to pick up sometimes than the CKELP meal. The CKELP meal is sold in that 4-pound bag, or else it's sold in a 40-pound bag, and that's for horses or animals. It's a feed, a vitamin. Okay, so this is the small one. Here's our tablespoon of radish seeds that's been soaked. So it's a little bit more. Okay. There you go. And you can use anything that's large enough to hold the tablespoon plus another, enough for the extra water. So again, I'm just going to spread this out over the whole thing, and then top it all off with a good old wet piece of newspaper. This is actually just newsprint. I buy this in a box because when I used to make kits and stuff, it was a lot easier to fold this stuff up. But anyway, you can use regular old newspaper. The ink on a newspaper is a soy-based oil. They no longer use lead in any inks, and they haven't for years. Lead has been gone. Okay, so there you go. See, I've pressed that down. Can you see? I've pressed that down nice and tight up against the seeds. Yep. Okay. All right, so that's the first one. That one goes in the cupboard. This is the other one, and this is the bigger one. This is the 2 tablespoons. These are the radishes. That one was a hung bit. So those would be nice red. Yeah. This one is a China rose, and it has a sort of a pinkish stem and a whitish stem, sort of a half and half. It's probably the least expensive of the radish seeds, the China rose. But the daikon radish, if you can get it, is nice bright white stems, and it's a great flavor, fast growing, terrific. All the radishes are fast growing. And Johnny started this whole thing with quite a variety of radishes, where they're pinks and purples, and as a matter of fact, I think you have one. I
think the sagos are purplish.
Yeah, this one here was the purple. They called it purple sango radish, and the seeds actually. It's not a solid purple in the picture, but some of them of the purple seeds are actually really purple.
Yeah.
Okay, so I spread this out. You just try to make sure that they're touching, not overlapping too much, and they're ready to go. And I just fold it up. I forgot to do the folded part, didn't I? Okay, so there you go. Tucked right in. Okay, put little baby to bed. And okay, so if you like if you like to use a bowl like this, this bowl is just about the same size as the large pan. And like I said in the book, there's a section there on how much seed for what size bowl. So sometimes you have 6-inch bowls, and sometimes a little smaller bowl like this. Little smaller bowl.
Little tiny cups.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we gotta plant one of these again, don't we? So you can have it. Okay, so that's the CKELP. in there. And then we have the compost. Couple tablespoons of compost. Just like gardening, isn't it?
Smaller scale.
Perfect for the winter.
It's very relaxing too. I found that when I was doing this, it's very sort of, mindfulness oriented. You have to remember to do it every day, and it's just something small and quiet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get fresh greens at the end.
And yes, the reward comes around fairly quickly. And I always like to mention, if any of you are teachers out there, the kids love this because, from the time they plant to the time they're actually harvesting, it's like 7 to 10 days, whatever. And that's perfect. And also just being able to watch those little seeds sprout and the little fuzzy stuff, and they can literally look at their little garden every day and see something changing, That's, I have found working with kids a lot of times, you plant a seed and then you go away, and sometimes it's a long wait. And so this is just great for kids because they get to see it quickly. I always like that when I'm doing my classes, I can almost see which people are the teachers in there, because you can see them thinking, oh yeah, this would be really good for Okay, so we did here's the peas. So the peas, just enough to cover so they're touching. And so now I have my paper. So in this case, you just need to form it a little bit so it fits, and make it a little bit wider, and then just tuck it in all the way around. And you'll have a nice little round. Now these paper covers, you can reuse them. They'll get sort of crispy dry by the time you're done. And you can get 3 or 4 uses out of them. They work pretty well. There you go. Okay.
We had someone who commented, I'm doing an online garden class with kids. We did compost today, and we're definitely going to do this as part of the lineup. And we're going to progress to the real garden this spring and the summer, and they're going to cook with what they grow. So that's awesome. This is a good way to sort of start at this time of year with a garden course.
Absolutely.
Love it. We also had someone ask if you reuse the foil loaf pans. Is there a limit to how often you can reuse those, or are they kind of just as long as you need them?
They'll go through at least 10 plantings before. And like I was saying, sometimes, you'll poke a hole in it. And since we don't use any drainage holes and we don't want to get water on our shelves, I found that for the most part, you can kind of plug up the holes with a piece of duct tape. But after so many, you'll have to give them up.
And to those of you asking, yes, we are recording this, and we will post it on our website a few days after. It just takes a little bit to process the video file, but I'll be sending out an email to everybody with the link to the recording when it's up, so you can definitely watch this again, plant along with Mr. Burke if you need some reminders on how it works. But the recording will go up in just a few days, hopefully either end of this week or early next week. So Thanks.
And if they have questions, they're welcome to let me know.
Great.
Okay, so there we go. We've done our planting, and we've done 4 trays here, 4 good-sized trays. That's probably enough for a day's salad, for sure. Okay. Any questions on that so far?
No questions coming in so far on the technique. I do know last time we showed how to fold. I don't know if you have time for that. Yep, perfect.
I'm drying it off.
Show your origami skills.
Yes, the folding skills, yes.
So yeah, again, if people have questions during all of this, feel free to post them in the chat. I'm loving all the questions coming through so far.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll put my plug in again to, if you're comfortable sharing where you're watching from. I love seeing how far our reach has gotten. We're not just getting to Burlington people, we're getting all over. So I'd love to know where everyone's watching from, because I've apparently learned that Eventbrite has been sharing our events out pretty widely, which is great. So I'd love to know how far we're reaching. but we'll show you the paper folding part now.
Yeah. So this is like a sheet of newspaper, you know. You can buy these at Staples or if you want, but most of us have some. Oh, it's harder and harder to find the newsprint anymore, but usually you can find some. So I just take in the case of the big one, I use 3 sheets. So that would be like you know, 2 pages from the newspaper, and I just fold it. You can see here, I've folded it so that, come on, folded it so it's just about, you know, just slightly wider than the tray. Okay, and then in this case, I'll just fold it in thirds like that, and that is slightly larger, so that when I press it down, you know, it's nice and firm all the way around. But you see here, it's nice and firm all the way around, nice and tight. And then the same thing is when I use the smaller one, I'll go ahead and I just use the 2 sheets for that one. Say, you know, you want about 12 layers of the newspaper. If they're drying out too fast, you can try a few more. Do a few more sheets of paper and soak it up good. If you're in a spot where it's really your warm place has a lot of warm air flowing around, these might dry out in the first day or so. So in that case, because you've got this sort of little tray here, you can just pour a little water on and keep it up. But usually by the 4th day, it's just really important for those first 2 or 3 days that it's moist. Then once it starts to push up, it doesn't need that, it doesn't need it anymore, so it's not important. So there you go. See those, just go in there. Just go in the tray of water. Here you can see I've got these very well soaked.
Great. Do you have a copy of your book with you to hold up and show the front cover? Because if not, I can go back to the slide and put that up. I'll do that at the end. Yeah, I'll do that at the end just so we don't miss any of the demo. But yeah, I'll definitely put the slide of the book cover on the front when that's over. And then somebody else wanted to know, after each harvest, do I need fresh soil mix, or can you just sift out the plants like you showed and use the same stuff?
Either one works fine.
Okay.
For us, because you know, I've got 5 compost bins and we produce a fair amount of green stuff. I usually use up most of what it. But for a while, I was recycling all of it, and you know, grinding it up, and it works pretty good. What my boss's wife, she does that. She, you know, grinds it all up and reuses it, and you know, over time you'll have to add a little bit more, but you'll get a lot of good use out of it.
Would you add more of the compost and the sea kelp each time? Like, has that been used up?
No, the compost and the sea kelp, I would do the same thing. I put it in the bottom. And the thing to watch for when you're reusing that is if you start to have any problems with mold, then it's time to, you know, it's time to use all new stuff, throw it away. Because that's the reason we're using that soil, is to make sure we don't have any problems with damp off or any molds and anything like that.
Great. Someone wanted to know, can you store the soil that you don't use in the Ziploc bag, or should you only wet as much soil as you need for that day so you're not storing it wet? Like, will that start to mold?
It'll store for a month or so. That's no problem. And even if it stores for that long, usually don't have any problem.
Because it is pretty sterile, right? With
it's
the
a sterile mix. Yeah.
Someone wanted to know if there's anything else that you could use other than newspaper to cover the seeds.
Oh gosh, yes. You know, you can use those brown paper towels that you know, you could easily recycle those. You can use just regular old paper towels, white ones, or anything like that. You can use fabric, any kind of a cotton or anything, and you know, any kind of a terry cloth pad, a rag, you know, terry cloth rag. Anything like that will work fine.
Great.
You just, you just have to judge how many layers you want so that it stays moist enough for those first 3 or 4 days to, to keep the seeds growing.
Would they still be able to push up the weight of
Oh,
the
yeah,
terry cloth?
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Perfect. And just in case people are interested, we've had everyone from Michigan, Toronto, Connecticut, Ohio, here in Burlington, South Burlington, San Francisco, Wisconsin, and South Carolina so far. So we are spanning the country.
Oh, well, hello, neighbors.
That's great. I love it. So yeah, we have a few more minutes left in class. If people have any other questions that they'd like to put in, if there's any steps of this that you'd like a refresher on, I will go ahead real quick and put up that slide of the book cover. Let me get back to it real fast in the PowerPoint, and then I'll go ahead and make that live. So
Sure.
find the slide, but yeah, now's the time to get any of your pressing questions answered. Anything that hasn't come up in the questions so far, we would love to answer it for you. All right, I'm going to send the image of the book live so people can see that.
You can see. Now it's funny because I probably sent 100 pictures to my publisher because they were talking about send pictures, and my daughter had sent these pictures just for the fun of it, and she said, "Look what I'm doing," and so I included them in there, and lo and behold, I get the cover back, and it's all Claudia's pictures.
Her pictures, great. Someone wanted to know if kale would work. Kale seeds.
Kale works like broccoli, yeah. Kale, cabbage, any of the cole family would work fine, just like the way broccoli was. So you'd use a heaping teaspoon for this size tray, and at that point, whether it's cauliflower or Chinese cabbage or broccoli or any of those, they have slightly different flavors, but it's the same sort of sweet flavor and all of them in their sprouts. So yeah, and that's another, it's another nice thing. At the end of the season, when you have these seeds left over from your garden, you can use them in your indoor garden.
Great.
It's a nice way to use them up. And if you have some seeds that are left over from a few years, you can use those up. I did that this winter, actually. I went through all my seeds and I said, 2008, yeah, it's probably time to
sprout those and see what comes up. Yeah. Yeah, I do know the one question that came up last time that hasn't come up this time. Once they're in the windowsill and the light, is it okay that it's, here in Burlington, it's 20 degrees outside. Is it okay if they touch the glass, or should you make sure that they're not anywhere close to the actual glass?
Yeah, that's, if they're insulated glass, like double pane, it'd be okay if it touches. You just don't want them to freeze to the glass. Yeah, that would be, but you saw the pictures, I had them on my windowsill there. And they were fine. That's all double pane glass. So yeah, it's fine. I did have one person who was trying, and she said she could not get them to sprout in the beginning. And I said, well, where are you putting them? Oh, I put them in a cupboard. And I said, well, is the cupboard warm? Well, no, we keep our house pretty cold. And then we kept on. Actually, the cupboards were right up against a brick wall with no insulation between the outdoors. And I was like, they're freezing to death. No wonder. You got to find a warmer place. Candy. Jeez.
Yeah. A couple more questions coming in for you. How about Swiss chard? Would Swiss chard work? Have you tried?
No, Swiss chard doesn't work well. It needs a longer growing season, and at that size and the lower ones, they tend to be a little on the bitter. They work well for microgreens. Chard is great for microgreens, but that's the true leaf. We're not using the cotyledon. And the cotyledon is small, so it doesn't work too well.
I'm going to go back to you in a large format. We've had a request to put you back instead of the PowerPoint. There we go. Yep. Someone wants to know if we can use spare high mowing sunflower garden seeds. We did mention that the black oil is the best.
Yeah, the black oils. There's no reason you can't use it. It's just, if you're using up the spare ones, yeah, by all means, use them up. You may notice that you have to tug a little bit on the hull to get them off. And, for occasion, that's fine. That's no problem at all.
Someone asked if you could repeat your recommendations for the best places to buy seeds. It may have been answered while they were otherwise occupied, but where do you like to buy them?
City Market is a very good place to buy them. And then from there, pretty much you just, if you, Google the seeds for shoots, or, you'll find a lot of different places. Handy Pantry was the one that I used to use quite a bit. And I think they've changed their name now to True Leaf. Johnny's has seeds for shoots. High Mowing has seeds for shoots. Terrestrial,
territorial seeds, yeah.
Territorial seeds, yeah. They have them. The pine tree over in that's over in Maine too. They have them. Let me see. Almost every catalog now has some.
The big thing.
Yes, it's become. Now, if you go to the garden store and you see in the seed bins, right? Well, they have like a tablespoon of pea seeds, and they'll say, pea seeds for shoots or for microgreens. Well, it's about a tablespoon, and it's going to cost you $2.39. It's not a good buy. You can do a lot better than that.
Yeah.
If you're not concerned about whether they're organic or not, you can buy. Like Agway has, they use seeds that are for green manure. And they have daikon and they have peas, and you can use those, but I usually try to stay with the organic ones. But if you don't have them, better off to grow them and have those fresh greens.
Someone asked, what temperature could it be to move them onto my screen porch? I think you said like 55 is sort of the
55,
lower.
Yeah, they'll grow fine then.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so I will leave it up for another minute or two in case there's any last minute pressing questions, but otherwise, thank everybody so much for attending. It's been great to have this sort of feeling of community, even though we're having to be a little separated from each other right now.
Yep.
Sorry again for the face shield, the face mask. We're just keeping everybody safe here at the co-op. So any last minute questions can go ahead in that chat. And otherwise, thank you all so much for attending. And I will send another email out with, oh yeah, there you go. We'll plant that as our wind down. I'll send that email with the survey link, and I'll send an email when the class recording has been posted on our website as well. So as we watch Peter plant the beautiful plastic solo cup, we will say goodbye to everybody and thank you again so much.
Yeah, this is fun. This is fun for the kids because they get to see the roots all down. Oh, there we go. A bit of manure, compost, a little bit of COMPOST. Not much. A little bit of, what should we do? Radishes.
I thought the peas were nice in that one. The peas
Yeah,
had nice.
the peas. Yeah, they had the nice big.
A lot of people just saying thank you. This was awesome. This was great. So thank you, for attending. It's been great.
Yeah, this is fun. I suppose we could do it again.
Yeah. And I'm just happy because I get to enjoy the spoils in a couple days.
That's right.
Yep, they live in the closet here for a few days, and then I move them to our nice big sunny windowsill.
That's right. Yeah, and you'll get to see. I put those hong vit there for you, so you'd have some of those to see. The radishes.
Great.
All right. That should be enough. I've got to get a little teeny piece of paper. I think probably half of that will do.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So we've had fun.
We've had a lot of fun. This has been great. Great way to spend an evening.
One of my favorites. All right, so there. Next time I should have one of these planted so I can show you. There.
Very nice.
Good.
Great. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and end the event. Again, thanks so much. Be well, be safe, and hopefully we'll see you at another one of our classes in the future.